I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten her. I didn't even argue. I just said one sentence. No, I'm not giving you free gas. Her smile didn't fade slowly. It snapped. You know that look, when entitlement turns into calculation. When someone stops seeing you as a neighbor and starts seeing you as a problem. She tilted her head, like she'd already decided something. Then I'll let the police handle this. That was the moment my wife squeezed my arm. Not hard, not in panic, just enough to say, here we go again. Before I tell you what happened next, understand this. This wasn't about gas. It was never about gas. This was about control. And she thought she had it. 10 minutes earlier. It was still early. Sun barely over the rooftops. The kind of quiet that only exists before normal people wake up. I was in the garage, tightening a loose fitting on the generator line. Not a flashy setup. Not illegal. Just smart. Storms had been bad lately. Power outages were becoming normal. So I installed a private backup system. Fully permitted, fully inspected. And yes, it ran on gas. That's when I heard heels. Fast, sharp, angry. Not the sound of someone coming to chat. The garage door was open. She didn't knock. She entered. Karen. Late 40s. Perfect hair. Perfect teeth. That HOA clipboard tucked under her arm like a weapon. She didn't say hello. She scanned the generator, the fuel line, the meter. Then she smiled. That smile. Good morning, she said, already nodding to herself. So this is where the extra gas is going. I blinked. Excuse me? She tapped the clipboard. Community emergency clause. During shortages, residents are required to cooperate. I waited. She leaned closer. You'll need to reroute this line to the HOA supply tank. There it was. Not a request. A decision. I gave her an out. I stayed calm. Because I've learned something over the years. People like this don't escalate unless you let them. So I said, that's my private system. HOA doesn't own it. Her eyes narrowed just a little. Well, she said sweetly, everyone has to sacrifice. Then she added the real line. Unless you want to deal with consequences. Here's the thing she didn't know. I've stood in rooms where people argued whether to send armed teams into buildings. I've listened to parents cry on the other end of the phone. I've signed papers that ended careers. So when she said consequences, my heart rate didn't change. I simply said, no. That's when her tone changed. She straightened, took a step back. Refusal to cooperate can be interpreted as hoarding, she said. I almost laughed. Hoarding gas? I asked. For my own generator? She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out her phone. And that's when my wife walked in. My wife saw the look. Not the clipboard. Not the phone. The look. She knows it. She's seen it before, on people right before they try to use the system as a weapon. Is there a problem? She asked. Karen smiled again. Oh no, she said. Just educating your husband on community responsibility. Then she looked straight at me. I'm calling the cops. Pause here. Let me ask you something honestly. What would you do? Argue? Explain? Back down to keep the peace? Because that's what she expected. What she didn't expect was my reaction. I nodded. That threw her. You're okay with that? She asked. Of course, I said. She hesitated. Just half a second. Then she dialed. The call. She didn't whisper. She wanted us to hear. Yes. Hello? I'd like to report suspected fuel hoarding and refusal to comply with HOA emergency directives. She paced as she talked. Yes, private residence. Possible safety violation. She smiled at me while she spoke. Yes, I'll wait. She ended the call and crossed her arms. They'll be here shortly, she said. I hope you enjoy explaining yourself. The silence after. No yelling. No threats. Just quiet. The generator hummed softly. My wife looked at me. I gave her a small nod. She understood. Because here's what Karen didn't know. The officers she just called? I'd signed off on half their promotions. I'd been to their kids' graduations. And in exactly 7 minutes, this little power play was going to collapse in on itself. But not yet, because before that happened, Karen decided to do one more thing. Something that turned this from annoying to unforgettable. As we waited, she walked back toward the generator. She reached out and touched the fuel line. "That's a violation," she said. "I could shut this down myself." That's when I stepped forward and said, "Take your hand off my property." She didn't. She smiled. And in the distance, I heard sirens. The sirens didn't rush. They slowed. That's how I knew exactly which unit it was. You don't hear that kind of braking unless the driver already knows the street. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy rehearsing her victory. Clipboard hugged tight. Chin up. That smug calm people get when they think the system is about to do their dirty work. She finally took her hand off the fuel line. Not because I told her to, but because she wanted both arms free when the police arrived. Presentation matters to people like her. The patrol car pulled up. Single unit. No lights. No urgency. Just tires on asphalt. Karen straightened instantly. "This is perfect timing," she said, already walking forward. The officer stepped out. Male. Early 30s. Clean uniform. Calm eyes. He looked at Karen. Then at me. Then at the generator. And something subtle happened. His posture changed. Not fear. Not surprise. Recognition. Just a flicker. Karen didn't see it. "Officer," she called out. She waved like she was hailing a waiter. "I'm so glad you're here. We have a situation." The officer nodded politely. "Ma'am." She launched immediately. "This man is refusing to comply with HOA emergency fuel redistribution. He's hoarding gas and running unauthorized equipment." Unauthorized. That word always comes out first. The officer looked at me again. "Sir," he said, "can you confirm?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted Karen to keep talking, because people always hang themselves when they think no one important is listening. Karen added more rope. "He was warned," she said quickly. I explained the rules. He refused. His wife witnessed it. She turned to my wife. "You did witness it, didn't you?" My wife didn't flinch. "He refused," she said calmly, "to give you something you don't own." Karen scoffed. "See? Uncooperative." The officer wrote something down. Slowly, deliberately. That made Karen uneasy. "Sir," the officer said again. "What's your name?" I gave it. Just my last name. His pen paused, just for a beat too long. Then he looked up. "Do you have ID?" I reached into my pocket. Karen smiled wider. This was her moment. Here's what she thought was happening. She thought I was about to get lectured. Maybe fined. Maybe warned. Maybe embarrassed in front of my wife. She was already planning the HOA email. Situation resolved. Compliance achieved. I could see it in her face. I handed him my ID. He took it. Looked down. Then back up. Then down again. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. Karen cleared her throat. "Well?" she asked. "Is that enough?" The officer didn't answer her. He stepped slightly away from her. That was the first crack. "Sir," he said quietly to me, "are you currently on duty?" Karen's smile froze. "What?" she said. I answered just as quietly. "No." The officer nodded. "Yes, sir." Karen laughed nervously. "Oh, that's funny," she said. "You didn't tell me you're a cop." I didn't correct her. Yet, the officer turned to Karen. "Ma'am, I need to clarify a few things." She exhaled, relieved. "Of course. Do you have legal authority to seize private fuel infrastructure?" Her eyebrows shot up. "Well, it's HOA policy." "That's not what I asked." Karen blinked. She tried to regain control. "We have emergency provisions." "Written into law?" the officer asked. "Well, no, but then you don't have seizure authority." Karen's voice tightened. "He's still refusing a lawful directive." The officer looked at her clipboard. "May I see that?" She handed it over. Reluctantly, he flipped through it, page by page. Slow, painfully slow. This is where her confidence started bleeding out. The officer handed the clipboard back. "Ma'am," he said, "nothing here grants you the right to touch his equipment." Karen crossed her arms. "Then why are you here?" The officer met her eyes. "Because you called." Karen snapped. "So what? You're just going to ignore a violation?" "I don't see one," he replied. Her voice rose. "He admitted he has gas. During a shortage." I finally spoke. "It's legally purchased," I said. "Stored within code. For my generator." The officer nodded. Karen spun toward me. "You can't just say that." I looked at her. "I just did." The tone shifted. Karen realized something was wrong. Not panic yet, but confusion. She turned back to the officer. "Are you friends with him?" The officer didn't answer. He said, "Ma'am, I need you to step back from the equipment." She scoffed. "You can't order me around." He didn't raise his voice. "Yes," he said, "I can." That word hit her hard. Order. She hesitated, then stepped back. But she wasn't done. "This isn't over," she said. "You're protecting him because he flashed a badge, aren't you?" The officer's jaw tightened. "He didn't flash anything." She jabbed a finger toward me. "Then what is this?" "Favoritism." The officer took a breath. Measured. Controlled. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. "Ma'am, do you know who you called?" Karen laughed. "I called the police." "Yes," he said. "And you're speaking to them." She rolled her eyes. "And?" The officer turned slightly, faced me, and spoke loud enough for her to hear. "Chief, do you want me to continue handling this? Or would you like me to call it in?" The word hung in the air. "Chief." Karen didn't process it at first. Her mouth opened, closed. "Chief what?" she said. The officer repeated it. "Police chief." Karen's face drained. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just drained, like someone pulled the plug. "That's not funny," she whispered. I met her eyes. "It's not a joke." She looked at my wife, at the officer, at the patrol car, at the quiet street. "No," she said. "No, no, no." She tried to backpedal. "I didn't know," she said quickly. "I mean, how could I?" I didn't answer. The officer did. "Ma'am, you accused a private citizen of a crime without evidence. You trespassed on his property. And you interfered with critical infrastructure." Karen swallowed. "I was just doing my job." I finally spoke again. "Your job," I said, "ends where my property begins." Silence. The kind that rings in your ears. Karen's hands were shaking now. Am I in trouble?" she asked. The officer looked at me, waiting. This was my decision. I didn't answer immediately, because here's the part people don't understand. Power isn't loud. It's quiet and deliberate. I stepped closer, not threatening, just close enough that she had to look up at me. "You made this public," I said. "You escalated it. You involved my department." She nodded rapidly. "I'm sorry. That apology," I said, "is late." When I said, "Call it in," I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to, because authority doesn't shout. It moves systems. The officer nodded once. Not fast, not slow, professional. He stepped a few feet away and keyed his radio. Karen watched him like someone watching a judge reach for the gavel. "Dispatch," the officer said. "Requesting supervisor presence. Possible unlawful interference with private infrastructure. Subject identified." Karen flinched at the word subject. She leaned toward me. "I really think this is a misunderstanding," she whispered. I didn't look at her. This is the moment people don't expect. They think the reveal is the climax. "Oh wow, he's the police chief." They think that's where it ends. But that's actually where things get worse. Because now the system has a record. And systems don't forget. The radio crackled back. "Copy. Supervisor en route." Karen's breath caught. "How long will that take?" she asked the officer. He didn't answer her. That hurt more than any insult. She tried a new angle. "I mean, surely this doesn't need to go that far," she said. I finally turned to her. Too far, I said. Was when you touched the fuel line. She swallowed. I didn't damage anything. You don't need to, I replied. You created risk. She shook her head. I was just enforcing rules. No, I said. You were enforcing authority you don't have. That sentence landed, because it named the real problem. She looked around for allies. The street was quiet. A curtain moved across the road. Someone was watching. Karen noticed. Her shoulders tightened. This wasn't private anymore. This is going to look bad, she said. Not for me, for her. I didn't respond. The officer stepped back toward us. Chief, he said quietly. Supervisor is 5 minutes out. Karen's face went pale. 5 minutes is a long time. Enough time for panic to bloom. Enough time for someone to realize. They misjudged the power balance. Karen started talking. Fast. Too fast. You have to understand, she said. I deal with non-compliance all the time. She laughed nervously. People lie. They cheat. They try to get special treatment. I raised an eyebrow. And you assumed I was one of them? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Honest. Too honest. That admission mattered. Because now it wasn't about gas. It was about bias. About how easily she decided. I was the problem. Because I didn't bend. I leaned slightly closer. Do you know why that's dangerous? I asked. She shook her head. Because you didn't verify, I said. You didn't ask. You didn't check permits. You didn't contact the city. I pointed to the generator. All of this is documented. Her eyes flicked toward it. Fear. You went straight to force, I continued. Social force. Legal threats. Police. She whispered. I thought you were just a homeowner. I nodded. That's the point. The supervisor arrived. Unmarked SUV. Slow roll. Parked deliberately. The supervisor stepped out. Older. Sharper eyes. Command presence. He looked at me. Then Karen. Then the officer. He didn't ask what happened. He asked one question. Who initiated the call? Karen raised her hand halfway. Then lowered it. The officer answered. HOA representative. Alleged fuel hoarding. The supervisor turned to Karen. Ma'am, he said calmly, do you have evidence of a crime? She opened her mouth. Closed it. No, she said. The supervisor nodded. Then why are we here? Karen's voice cracked. I thought. That's not evidence, he said. This is where consequences start forming. Not dramatic. Administrative. Paperwork. Procedures. Karen didn't understand yet. But I did. The supervisor turned to me. Chief, he said, do you want this documented? Karen snapped her head up. Documented. That word scares people like her. Because documentation outlives apologies. I took a breath. This wasn't about revenge. This was about lines. And teaching what happens when you cross them. Yes, I said. Karen gasped. Please, she said. I didn't know. I looked at her. That didn't stop you. She started crying. Not loud. Controlled. The kind of crying meant to trigger mercy. I volunteer, she said quickly. I've lived here for years. I keep the community safe. I didn't interrupt. I let her talk. Because the more she spoke, the clearer the pattern became. Safe, I repeated. You felt safe enough to threaten someone's utilities. She shook her head. I would never. You already did, I said. The supervisor made a note. Just one line. But it mattered. Then came the question she feared. Ma'am, the supervisor said, did you receive training on legal boundaries? She hesitated. Well, no, but that's enough, he said. Karen's power cracked. She realized something. The system she used to intimidate people. was now evaluating her. And she had no clipboard for this. She turned to me again. "What happens now?" she asked softly. I didn't answer immediately. I looked at the officer, at the supervisor, at my wife, then back at Karen. "Now," I said, "you learn what accountability feels like." She whispered, "Am I being arrested?" I shook my head. "No." Relief flashed across her face. Then I added, "Not today." Karen thought not today meant she was safe. That's the mistake people make when they've never been on the other side of the system. She wiped her face, straightened her jacket, tried to look composed, like this was ending. It wasn't. The supervisor closed his notebook. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "you're free to leave for now." Karen nodded too fast. "Thank you," she said, already stepping backward. Then he added, "But do not contact this resident again." She froze, including through HOA channels. Her mouth opened, closed. She nodded. "Yes, of course." She turned to go. That's when I spoke again. "One more thing," I said. She stopped, slowly, like someone afraid of sudden movement. "Yes?" she asked. I looked at the supervisor. "Has the HOA board been notified?" Karen's head snapped toward him. "Notified of what?" she asked sharply. The supervisor met my eyes. "Not yet." I nodded. "Then I'd like that to happen." Karen's breath caught. This is where it became public. HOA power survives in shadows. Private emails, closed meetings, selective enforcement. The moment light hits it, collapses. The supervisor didn't argue. He pulled out his phone. "Who's the current board president?" he asked Karen. She hesitated. "I don't see why that's necessary." He waited. Silence does that thing, where it makes people talk. "Linda Matthews," Karen muttered. He nodded and stepped aside. Karen whispered to my wife. "I didn't know," she said again. My wife looked at her. "You didn't ask," she replied. That hurt more. The call went through. I couldn't hear the other end. But I didn't need to. The supervisor spoke slowly, clearly, using words like incident, liability, unauthorized enforcement. Karen's face drained again. Then came the sentence that broke her. "We'll need the full board present." Karen shook her head. "No," she whispered. The supervisor continued. "Immediately." She stepped forward. "You can't do this," she said, voice trembling. "This will destroy the HOA." I finally looked directly at her. "No," I said. "Your behavior will." She snapped. "Do you know how much I've done for this place?" There it was. The truth. Not community. Not safety. Ownership. "You think this is about gas?" she said. "You think this is about you?" I nodded slowly. Yes. That stunned her. Because for the first time, someone wasn't afraid to say it. "This is about power," I continued. "You've been deciding who matters and who doesn't." Her lips trembled. "I was keeping order." "No," I said. "You were practicing control." The supervisor ended the call. "They're on their way," he said. Karen staggered back. "On their way here?" He nodded. "This is where the incident occurred." Her legs nearly gave out. Neighbors started gathering. Not close, not obvious, but visible. Garage doors open. Porch steps occupied. People sensed blood in the water. Karen noticed. This was her worst nightmare. Witnesses. She leaned toward me again. "I can fix this," she whispered. I didn't respond. Because now, fixing wasn't an option. The board arrived in waves. Cars pulled up. 3 of them, then 4. Board members stepping out, confused, irritated. They saw the patrol car, the supervisor, me, Karen, and they knew something was wrong. Linda Matthews approached first. Late 50s, sharp eyes, real authority. "What is going on?" she asked. The supervisor answered. "Unauthorized enforcement action by your representative." Karen interrupted. "I was just..." Linda raised a hand. "Stop." Karen froze. Linda turned to me. I'm very sorry, she said. I nodded. This isn't about apologies. She sighed. What happened? The story came out. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just facts. Trespass. Threats. False report. Each word landed like a brick. Linda's face hardened. She turned to Karen. Is this true? Karen opened her mouth. Closed it. Yes, she said quietly. Linda exhaled. Do you understand the exposure you've created? Karen shook her head. Linda didn't soften. You involved law enforcement without cause. Karen whispered. I thought I had authority. Linda's voice dropped. You thought wrong. The room shifted. Karen wasn't speaking as an enforcer anymore. She was being evaluated. We'll need to suspend her immediately, Linda said. Karen gasped. What? Pending review. Karen's voice cracked. You can't. Linda cut her off. You don't speak for the HOA right now. That was it. Her title evaporated. Karen looked at me one last time. You did this, she said. I shook my head. No, I replied. You exposed yourself. The supervisor stepped in. There may also be civil implications. Linda nodded slowly. We'll cooperate fully. Karen's eyes widened. Civil. That meant lawsuits. She broke down completely. I was just trying to help, she sobbed. No one responded, because everyone there knew the truth now. The board dispersed. Quietly, urgently, damage control mode. Karen stood alone. No clipboard, no allies, just consequences. She walked past me. Stopped. I never thought you were important, she said softly. I looked at her. That's the problem. Karen thought suspension was the bottom. That's the lie people tell themselves, when they've never seen how consequences actually work. Titles disappear fast. Money moves faster. The call came the next morning. Not to Karen. To the HOA. Because the moment the word liability enters a report, insurance companies wake up. And they don't ask how you feel. They ask what you did. Linda Matthews called me first. Her voice was controlled. Professional. But tired. Chief, she said. I wanted to inform you before you heard it elsewhere. I already knew. You've heard from the insurer, I said. She paused. Yes. Here's what Karen didn't know yet. HOA insurance isn't just about broken sidewalks and roof leaks. Covers unauthorized enforcement, false police reports, civil rights exposure, personal liability carve-outs. And Karen checked every box. They're opening a formal investigation, Linda said. I let that hang. Which policy? I asked. She swallowed. All of them. That's when things stopped being theoretical. Insurance companies don't punish people. They calculate them. And Karen's behavior had just become a line item. Linda continued. They're requesting statements from all involved parties. Already prepared, I said. She exhaled. I assumed as much. Karen found out 2 hours later. I wasn't there. But I didn't need to be. Because I've heard that tone before. The tone people use. When the ground finally gives way. Karen called Linda screaming. Not angry. Panicked. They can't do this, she said. I was acting on behalf of the HOA. Linda didn't raise her voice. That's exactly the problem, she replied. The insurer's position was simple. If Karen acted without legal authority, the HOA might still be exposed. But Karen? She could be personally liable. No shield. No indemnification. Just her. Karen demanded to speak to me. I declined. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Anything I said now would become evidence. And she didn't deserve the comfort of my voice. The letter arrived that afternoon. Certified. Thick. Official. Karen opened it at her kitchen table. Hands shaking. The words that mattered were buried in the middle. Coverage may be denied due to willful misconduct. She read it 3 times. Then she screamed. This is the moment people don't see online. Not the confrontation. Not the reveal. The after. When no one is watching. When power is gone. And accountability shows up quietly. Karen drove back to the neighborhood. Not to enforce. to plead. She knocked on Linda's door, then another board member's. No one answered, because fear had changed sides. Meanwhile, the paperwork moved. My department finalized the report. Clean, precise, unemotional. That's how real damage is done. Karen's attorney called the HOA, then called the insurer, then stopped calling. Because the math wasn't working. She showed up at my house again. Not angry, not confident, small. My wife answered the door. Karen stood there holding the letter. "I'm sorry," she said. Not performative. Broken. My wife looked at her. "You were sorry yesterday?" she asked. Karen shook her head. "No. That's the problem," my wife replied. Karen finally understood. This wasn't about gas. This wasn't about authority. This was about who you decide to step on. When you think no one important is watching. She whispered, "I could lose everything." My wife didn't respond. Because some lessons aren't meant to be softened. The insurer made their move. They issued a reservation of rights. Translation: we might not protect you. Karen's name was now permanently tied to risk. Linda called me again that night. "They're discussing dissolution," she said quietly. I paused. "The entire HOA?" "Yes." Karen's actions had poisoned the well. "People are pulling records," Linda continued. "Old complaints, old fines, patterns." I nodded. That's what happens when one crack lets light in. Karen texted me once. Just 4 words. "I didn't know." I didn't reply, because ignorance isn't innocence. Karen thought insurance was the final boss. That once money entered the room, everything became negotiable. She was wrong. Because money argues. Records don't. The email that changed the tone. It didn't go to Karen. It went to the city compliance office. Automatically. Triggered by keywords in the insurer's report. False police report. Unauthorized enforcement. Potential civil rights exposure. Pattern of conduct. Those words light up dashboards. And when they do, the city doesn't ask permission. Linda called me again early. Too early. Her voice was tight. "They're opening a municipal review," she said. I didn't pretend to be surprised. "Who?" I asked. "Compliance, ethics, and zoning oversight." I closed my eyes for a second. That was bad. Not for me. For everyone involved with the HOA. Karen found out the hard way. A city vehicle parked outside her house. No sirens. No lights. Just a seal on the door. 2 people stepped out. Clips. Folders. Neutral faces. That's how real authority arrives. "Ms. Karen Matthews?" one of them asked. She nodded. "We need to ask you a few questions regarding your role with the HOA. Her mouth went dry. "Am I in trouble?" she asked. They didn't answer. They never do. The questions weren't loud. They were precise. "How long have you acted as an enforcement representative? What training were you provided? Who authorized your actions? Have you ever contacted law enforcement on behalf of the HOA before?" Karen answered. Every answer dug the hole deeper. Because here's what the city already knew. They weren't starting from zero. They had prior complaints, logged calls, emails from residents, pattern. My incident wasn't the beginning. It was the trigger. The city officials thanked her. That terrified her more than anger would have. Then they handed her a notice. Notice of administrative review. Karen stared at it. This isn't criminal, right?" she asked. One of them replied calmly. "That depends on what we find." Meanwhile, the HOA was unraveling. Board members were panicking. Not because of Karen. Because of exposure. Every fine. Every warning. Every selective enforcement decision. All of it was now discoverable. Emergency HOA meeting, closed session. I wasn't there. But I know how those rooms sound. Raised voices. Blame shifting. Someone saying, "This goes back years." Karen's name came up a lot. But so did others. That's what happens when one person pulls too hard on the rope. Karen called me again. Voicemail. Crying. "I didn't know they were watching," she said. "I didn't know this could happen." I listened, then deleted it. Not out of cruelty, out of boundary. The city's findings came fast. Too fast to be comforting. They flagged unauthorized entry onto private property, abuse of quasi-authority, misrepresentation of emergency powers. Karen's actions weren't just bad behavior. They were procedural violations. The city contacted my office. Officially, they wanted confirmation, dates, times, statements. Everything I gave them was factual, emotionless. That's how you win without trying. Karen's attorney finally spoke clearly. He told her the truth. You're not just exposed, he said. You're documented. She asked what that meant. He explained. This record would follow her. HOAs, boards, volunteer positions. Anything involving authority. She lost more than power. She lost future credibility. The kind you never get back. Karen tried one last move. She went to the city office herself. Walked in. No appointment. She wanted to explain. They let her talk. Then added her statements to the file. That was the end. The HOA received its notice. Probationary oversight. Translation. The city would now monitor enforcement. Approve fines. Audit complaints. The HOA's power was officially clipped. All because one person didn't know when to stop. Linda called me that night. Her voice broke. We're voting to dissolve, she said. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just said, that's probably wise. Karen moved out 2 weeks later. Quietly. No goodbye. No farewell email. Just a for sale sign. People noticed. They always do. The street felt different. Calmer. Lighter. No clipboards. No threats. Just neighbors again. One last letter arrived. From the city. Short. Formal. The review was complete. Karen's conduct was officially cited. On record. Permanent. Karen thought losing power was painful. She was wrong. Power fades. Reputation? It dies slowly. And loudly. The morning after she moved out. She drove past the street one last time. Windows up. Hands gripping the steering wheel. The silence of the neighborhood wasn't peaceful. It was judgment. Neighbors she once intimidated waved politely, or not at all. No one stopped her. No one smiled. She realized something for the first time. All the people she thought were beneath her didn't care anymore. HOA gossip spreads like wildfire. Emails, texts, and private messages circulated quickly. Did you hear what Karen did? She's in trouble with the city. I can't believe she pulled the cops on a neighbor. Her influence? Gone. Her credibility? Destroyed. Even her closest allies avoided her. First public consequence. A local newsletter featured a cautionary article. How one HOA member overstepped her bounds. Lessons in authority and responsibility. Karen didn't see it coming. The article didn't mention names at first, but residents recognized her immediately. Her face paled. Her hand shook as she read the lines out loud. Every sentence was a mirror showing her arrogance and failure. Social isolation is the worst. Karen tried calling friends she once leaned on. Hi, it's Karen, she said. Voicemails. No answers. Texts ignored. Even neighbors she volunteered with for years now blocked her. She realized something most people never do. Authority without respect is nothing. Financial consequences hit next. Without her position, some HOA perks vanished. Reserved parking? Gone. Committee stipends? Gone. Influence over decisions? Gone. Her investments, which relied on HOA approval, stalled. The moment you rely on power over others, losing it can bleed you in multiple ways. Attempts to rebuild fail. Karen tried reaching out to city officials, offering apologies. They listened politely, filed her words, ignored her intent. Every action she had taken, documented. Every misstep, traceable. No charm. No excuses. No return. The HOA board moves decisively. Linda Matthews sent her final letter. Due to the documented violations and the resulting city oversight, your participation in HOA activities is permanently revoked. Access to records, funds, and any private meetings is prohibited. Karen folded the letter. Her fingers trembled. It wasn't anger. It wasn't disbelief. It was finality. Isolation intensifies. Neighbors stopped acknowledging her. Walked the other way on sidewalks. No small talk. Karen was no longer a figure of authority. No longer a threat. No longer a person people noticed. She realized her life had shrunk to the size of her car. Public humiliation. The HOA posted a notice, without names, about city oversight. The few residents who still supported Karen saw the writing on the wall. Even online groups previously supportive of HOA rules now shared cautionary tales of entitlement gone wrong. Her community hero identity evaporated. All that remained was exposure. Friends desert her. One by one, she received messages. "We can't associate with someone under city review. I'm stepping back for legal reasons." Karen felt the sting of invisible exile. No lawsuits yet. No arrests. No public shaming in the papers. But she was dead in the social ecosystem. Karen reaches out to me. She sent a short message. I didn't realize how far this could go. What do? I didn't reply, because some lessons aren't meant to be salvaged. Some lessons are meant to change the way you breathe in a room. Reflection. Karen spent her nights staring at ceiling lights, counting every mistake, realizing every action she took had consequences she couldn't reverse. Her neighbors weren't angry anymore. They were indifferent. And indifference is colder than rage. The subtle torment. Even mundane tasks reminded her of her fall. HOA meeting minutes she once wrote, publicly accessible. Emails she sent to friends, archived. Photos of her giving speeches, stored. Everything once powerful was now proof of misjudgment. Psychological toll. Karen stopped sleeping well. Nightmares of sirens, supervisors, and neighbors' glares plagued her. Every time she imagined returning, she felt the weight of 1,000 eyes judging her decisions. Her life had become a quiet, unrelenting penalty. Karen thought the worst had passed. She believed moving out and hiding from the HOA, the city, and insurance meant the danger was over. She was wrong, because people remember, and some people never forget. The first post. It appeared on a neighborhood social forum. Short, simple, anonymous. Remember how some HOA members abused their authority? Just a warning for everyone. Karen didn't see it at first. Her friend sent her a screenshot. Her heart sank. A single post. And suddenly, she wasn't in control anymore. The emails started. Former residents, volunteers, and neighbors wrote their stories. Karen threatened me with fines over a fence I didn't even build. She called the cops on my elderly father for parking in the wrong spot. I was terrified to disagree with her in meetings. Every story, fact-checked. Every story, archived. Karen read them all in silence. No scream, no tears, just cold recognition. Her actions, once hidden by authority, were now public record. The neighborhood forum exploded. What started as a few posts became a flood. Screenshots of old HOA emails, clips from meetings, testimonies of intimidation. Karen's name wasn't even necessary anymore. People knew who she was. Every post chipped away at the reputation she had built over decades. Calls from former allies. One by one, people she counted on to defend her vanished. "Karen, we can't. We're distancing ourselves," one said. "I can't risk legal exposure," another admitted. Karen was learning a new kind of fear, social isolation amplified by evidence. Media attention. A local news outlet picked up the story after a resident shared the forum posts. Local HOA member under fire for abusing authority. Karen didn't speak to the reporter. Her attorney advised against it, but her photo was already public. Her past actions dissected. Her reputation shredded. She wasn't a figure of authority anymore. She was a cautionary tale. The neighbor's reaction. People she once intimidated walked past her with smirks, small nods, or complete indifference. She realized her influence wasn't just gone. It had been reversed. What she once commanded out of fear, she now inspired as mockery. Attempts at damage control. Karen sent emails, letters, and even attempted private meetings. She wanted to explain, apologize, negotiate. Every outreach was met with one thing: evidence checks. Residents would respond with, "We have your past emails. We have city reports. We have HOA documentation. We don't need your explanation." Her apologies felt meaningless. Facing the witnesses, one by one, people she had previously silenced began to speak openly. A neighbor recounted how Karen threatened to fine them for minor landscaping choices. A former board member spoke about how Karen manipulated meeting agendas. Another resident detailed the incident where she tried to force access to private property. Karen sat silently, phone in hand. No argument, no rebuttal, because every word she could say was already contradicted by documentation. Realization hits. Karen understood, fully and finally. Her power depended on fear and invisibility. Once the fear vanished, once people saw the truth, her influence collapsed entirely. She had no allies, no authority, no credibility, and the system was now actively working against her. Social media magnifies it. Posts circulated on Facebook, neighborhood forums, and private groups. Her name became shorthand for abuse of HOA authority. Even those who didn't know the story personally started associating her face with control, intimidation, and recklessness. Karen had become a living warning. Personal consequences. She couldn't attend social events without whispers following her. She couldn't participate in community projects. She couldn't speak at HOA meetings elsewhere without the shadow of her prior actions preceding her. The very network she had built as a shield now ostracized her completely. Karen reaches out to me one last time. "Please? Can you help me? I didn't mean for it to go this far." I didn't respond. Not because I enjoyed her pain. Because some lessons only stick when the person experiences them fully. The neighborhood healed. Neighbors who once lived in fear now hosted block parties. Children played freely in yards once threatened by fines. The HOA rebuilt its credibility. And Karen? She was a ghost in the place she once controlled. Karen thought leaving the neighborhood meant escaping consequences. She was wrong. Because reputation isn't local. It travels. It follows. And it tracks patterns. First encounter outside the neighborhood. Karen tried joining a volunteer organization in the nearby town. Application forms. Background check. Standard procedure. But one question stopped her cold. "Have you ever been involved in documented disputes involving authority or enforcement?" She hesitated. Checked the box no. But her past had already followed her. Word had spread. Documents circulated. Former neighbors gave statements. She was flagged before she even walked in. Professional fallout. Karen had once used her HOA connections as leverage for consulting opportunities. Now, calls she had expected to return in her favor didn't come. Emails went unanswered. Contracts stalled. Opportunities vanished. People don't want someone with documented abuse in positions that involve trust or authority. Karen realized authority she misused didn't just damage her locally. It poisoned her professional reputation. Social ripple. A private neighborhood forum she had never joined posted screenshots of her HOA infractions. Other neighborhoods, unfamiliar with the story, now knew her face. This is the Karen who abused HOA power, right? Even strangers associated her with fear, intimidation, and reckless behavior. Her network shrank to friends who hadn't seen the documents yet, and those friends were leaving. Attempts at reinvention. Karen bought a new house in a different city. She tried to adopt a new identity. Volunteer, helpful neighbor, cautious authority. It didn't work. Former neighbors contacted new HOA boards discreetly. City compliance offices shared public records. Insurance carriers flagged her name. Karen was reputation-bound. Every mistake from the past was a tether she couldn't cut. Attempts at apology fail. Karen sent letters, messages and emails to HOA members, former neighbors, and city officials. I was wrong. I acted out of fear and overconfidence. Please accept my apology. Responses were neutral at best. Your apology is noted. Documentation remains unchanged. The words were polite, factual, and cold. Karen realized, some bridges cannot be rebuilt once burned with authority. Psychological toll intensifies. She stopped answering her phone, stopped attending meetings, stopped participating in local projects. Isolation wasn't just physical anymore. It was mental. Every door she opened led to a memory of documented failures. She couldn't escape the shadow of her actions. Family and friends feel the strain. Even relatives who once supported her began distancing themselves. We can't be associated with this anymore, one cousin said. Her personal life became quiet, cold, and marked by invisible boundaries. Every social interaction became a risk of exposure. Karen tries to rebuild online. She creates new social media accounts, tries to engage in positive posts, but screenshots of her past incidents circulate. People recognize her. Posts go viral within niche HOA circles. She learns quickly. The internet doesn't forget. The ultimate realization. One quiet evening, Karen sat alone, scrolling through forums, emails, and news clippings. She realized, power without accountability is temporary. Fear can be turned into evidence. Documents once filed last longer than intentions. Every action has ripple effects that follow you far beyond your immediate environment. She understood that she would never again walk into a room without someone evaluating her actions first. Even strangers would ask themselves, is this person trustworthy? Or is she the Karen from the HOA? Karen thought she had survived the fallout. She was wrong, because the world doesn't wait for apologies. It remembers actions, not intentions. Legal consequences finally arrive. A formal notice came from the city. Civil penalty for unauthorized enforcement actions. The letter was short. Trespass, misrepresentation of authority, violation of municipal codes. The fines weren't astronomical, but the record itself mattered. Karen realized for the first time, you can pay money back. You can't pay back a reputation. HOA and insurance follow-up. The HOA's insurance company confirmed. Karen's actions were classified as willful misconduct. They would not cover any future liability arising from her actions. She couldn't volunteer in any HOA or neighborhood enforcement capacity without risking personal liability. Karen stared at the letter. For decades, she had leaned on authority, but now every document ensured she would never have that power again. Social consequences solidify. Even outside the neighborhood, Karen's story spread. Neighboring HOAs refused her membership. Volunteer organizations flagged her. Online forums kept archives of her actions. Every attempt to rebuild authority failed. Every introduction carried a silent, invisible warning. This is Karen. She overstepped her bounds before. Be careful. Isolation becomes total. Former friends, relatives, and colleagues distanced themselves. She moved cities again, thinking distance would erase the past. Didn't. Phone calls went unanswered. Emails ignored. Old screenshots resurfaced. Karen realized, isolation isn't just physical. It's institutionalized and permanent once authority is abused. The psychological toll. Sleep became impossible. Every night Karen relived the city officers' neutral eyes, the HOA board's cold stares, neighbors' quiet judgment, the supervisor's calm words. She couldn't escape the memory of the moment her power ended. Not in the new neighborhood. Not in professional settings. Not even online. Attempts at redemption fail. Karen wrote letters of apology. She offered restitution. She tried humility. Everything was documented. No one responded. Not because they were cruel. Because they had no obligation to forgive documented behavior. She understood the truth. Some mistakes are permanent. The neighborhood moves on. The HOA board healed. Policies updated. Oversight improved. citizens empowered. Karen had left a scar, but the system learned. And in that learning, she became irrelevant. Karen's final reflection. Sitting alone in her new home, Karen realized, power depends on respect, not fear. Authority without boundaries is fragile. Documentation follows you forever. The ripple of misjudged actions reaches farther than you can see. She tried to imagine starting over. It wasn't possible. Some lessons can't be erased. Some mistakes follow you to the end. The ultimate closure. Karen's story is now a cautionary tale. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just factual. Authority misused doesn't disappear with an apology. Fear wielded as a weapon eventually turns into permanent consequence. Her power was gone. Her reputation destroyed. Her influence nullified. All because she refused to respect boundaries, and the system didn't forgive ignorance. Epilogue. The neighborhood thrives. Neighbors live without intimidation. Children play. Board members enforce rules fairly. Karen? A ghost in her own story. She isn't hated. She isn't remembered fondly. She exists only as a lesson for others. Power without accountability is temporary. Fear has limits. Mistakes, once documented, are permanent. Her chapter is over. The neighborhood moves on. And Karen will never regain the authority she once abused.